Shut up, you.
You on?
Yeah, I just,
Oh, you switched yourself to Alice, Jason? Nice. Cracks! I didn't expect to see you. I thought you weren't coming.
Well, I got out of the scene at 2:30. I thought I'd dress for you.
So, while we get set up, today we're gonna look at the social engineering toolkit. Why are you grinning at me? Oh right, pain pills. Used with a prescription. Anyway, we're gonna look at the social engineering toolkit. I'm gonna show you some stuff with Metasploit Pro, and then we're gonna go over some things like the porting of the exploit that we did in Python into Metasploit. We're gonna look at that, and any other questions you guys want to go over, we'll go over today because this is the last class. Then 2 Saturdays from now, not next Saturday, but the one after that, the one it says on the syllabus, we're gonna do capture the flag. Everybody who came to this class gets extra points for coming to the last class, because if you've been to college, nobody ever goes to the last class because you just fill out those evaluations and then you leave. But we're actually gonna do stuff today, so you get bonus points for coming today. And yeah, thanks for coming to class. Do you want us to get you another table, Grex? Yes. Okay. Carl's getting more tables.
I'm logged in. You want to?
Yeah, I'll give it to you. Make presenter. You sure you want presenter? Yes, yes I do. Alright. There's your sound. You should be good.
Oh, nice. Everybody can see if we can see that. Shut up,
Oh, it
you.
just went away. I did see your screen, but now I don't.
You see this?
Oh, that's your screen? Okay. It just got so, it looks a lot like my screen.
Yeah, really. There we go. Let me see that. I need Nice. If you have a Safari membership, they have a lot of good ones on there. If none of you have that, it's pretty cheap just to get it and use it online. Safari's by O'Reilly. What? Yeah, and a lot of you get your work to pay for it. It's pretty cheap if you spread it across a share account, but not. Okay. First thing, new window. Can everyone in the all right, I guess you're the only other person in the meeting, so it's kind of stupid to ask if you can hear me. Next. What is breaking in?
It's that show on Fox about hackers.
Oh, a show on Fox. Awesome. If it's not a cartoon, it's not really any good on Fox.
House is on Fox.
I stand by my statement.
Really? You don't like House?
It uses crap science. Hi, everybody. Well, I'm just trying to get people's attention. I'll sit back down. Hi, everybody. Look at the screen. This is a post-exploitation script I just wrote to pull Firefox or pull Dropbox credentials from a system. Apparently, a couple days ago, somebody figured out that in Dropbox, they store a static host ID that is the entire authentication credential in a SQLite database. So you can just copy the config.db file onto another system, and you've got access to their Dropbox contents. Yeah, there's no special way of hiding it. Just need the thing, and you can change the path inside the SQLite database, and it'll work fine. So this will pull that data off of the system. Works on Unix systems. I haven't tested on OS X because I don't use that. It should work. I base this on the Firefox credential pulling post-exploitation script. So if anybody wants it, you're welcome to get it. But what's that? That's a good question. The magnification bar doesn't work on the second screen. Let me drop it in. See if I can adjust the resolution here for you. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I'll drop it in my session. Zoom. There you go. I had a drive fail on me a couple hours ago before I came over here, so I have to connect back into home. But everybody got this? Okay. I hope they add it to the main source repository for metasploit, but I'm just waiting on them to approve it. Yeah, I can do that if you already logged in there. Okay. Okay, good. Okay. It shows my host name at home. Please don't DOS me. Okay, here's a couple caveats about Social Engineering Toolkit. It is difficult to get on working on other distributions. Every time Dave updates it, it breaks stuff if you run it elsewhere. So, unfortunately, you're pretty much stuck with running on Backtrack. Some of you like Backtrack, I'm sure. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it tends to work a little better there, just at the moment. It's got two interfaces, GUI and a command line interface. Command line interface is more mature, it's the older one. The GUI is web-based, and it works all right. I'm going to show you the command line interface first, and then I'm going to go over the GUI, because there are some things you need to do with the command line interface before you can really get into some more of the advanced aspects of using the toolkit, namely installing prerequisites and setting up the configuration file. Okay? It's a little easier to use if you have a workspace, so start X. Now, first thing you need to remember is http://www. Is it sac or secmaniac.com? Yeah, it's kind of a joke. Dave always tends to screw up his slides when he introduces something new. So the first time he had up there a symbol that looked like an A, so it was Sacmaniac as opposed to Secmaniac. You all saw the original, I think it was a couple years ago at ShmooCon, he had introduced this, one of the Fire Talks. So, go there, go to the download section, it tells you how to pull the SVN repo in. That's the better method of doing this. There is an older version inside of Backtrack, but it works best if pulled directly from the SVN. After you pull it from the SVN, you can then use the updating tool to update it, or use SVN up. It does the same thing, right? Additionally, you're going to need to install some prerequisites. Now, fortunately, he's added a setup PY to the program here, so it's easy to run, and it'll pull all the stuff in if you're using an Ubuntu-based system. Let me show you where to find that. I like to put stuff in Sandbox. You can put this wherever you want. It has to run as root. It checks to see if you're running as root, otherwise it's not able to bind stuff. If you want to hack the Python, you can disable that and bind to non-privileged ports, but out of the box you have to run it as a super user. And it will not run on Windows, obviously, because there is no root user per se. And you can hack it to work on that. It is Python-based, so if you know Python, you can make changes, add stuff. Recently, a modular system has been added to the framework, so you can add stuff, and actually the documentation in here tells you how to add additional modules to the framework. Okay? But first thing you need to do is run the setup, and you do that by going and running Python setup.py install. That'll pull in all the prerequisites off of wherever you might happen to have them. Obviously, you have to start networking first, so remember to do that or it's going to fail. It'll install the crypto libraries and everything else, with the exception of the JDK. Now, remember when I did my talk about client-side exploitation, and we went over the signed Java applet? Well, this uses the same applet, and this is actually where it came from originally. It was part of the social engineering toolkit. It was added to Metasploit later. So what you can do with that signed applet, just like you can in the other environment inside of core Metasploit, is sign it with your own details. And you have to have the JDK in both cases to do that. But if you go and look at the config file, which is in the config directory, okay, and it is set config. It allows you to it tells you where to pull that information in from. We'll go down there. So it tells you to run. This is the best way of doing it. The Sun JDK is a little bit more reliable than the OpenJDK one is right now. It's not the most current one, so you can download a more up-to-date one if you want to, but it is in the release 6 of the Java group. I think it pulls down to update 10, and I think they're up to update 24. Don't run any like websites or anything with the plugin because it's exploited all over the place right now. But it's easy to install this way, okay? I've already done this, and I've already set up some stuff, but I want to run through a few of the more important configuration parameters that you need to set, okay? First of these, if you pull down the SVN for Metasploit to any other path, like I have, you need to set this path. It relies heavily on Metasploit for exploitation. There is a shell built into set, but it is not nearly as fully functional as Meterpreter or some of the reverse shells are. Okay? And the configuration file is fairly well documented. It tells you pretty much what you need to do, but sometimes you can get a little mixed up if you're not fully familiar with it. So I urge you to read everything and look over it, and if you have any questions about it, ask. If you don't have my email, I'll be happy to give it to you. I can respond to you, or go on the IRC channel, freenode.net, social-engineer, and there's usually somebody there can help you out with it. All right. Now, some things that I've changed in this one for this demo to enable some of the better, more useful, and aggressive features of the social engineering toolkit, not including setting up the signing of the applet, is to do things like set up the Java repeater. I think this is an awesome trick. It annoys the user until they actually click yes. So if they don't click yes the first time, they can cancel. It pops up again and says, do you want to run this? And if they can cancel, do you want to run this? And it keeps doing that until they either close the web page or they click yes or accept. Annoy them into submission, and it works a vast majority of the time, right? You can change the port bindings, add custom binaries. If you want to use Apache, if you have Apache installed, the web server starts up faster, and the payloads will be delivered a little faster using Apache. It's faster. It's not run out of Ruby or out of Python. It's C code based, and Apache is pretty well optimized. So if you want to test out using that, do so. It's not required, but you can. If you've got a web server already in existence, this may be something that you want to do. Okay. Additionally, if you have a cert for the site that you're going to host the content on, an SSL certificate, you can specify that value here. My site, for instance, bordergatewayprotocol.net, has an SSL certificate, so if I wanted to use that one, I'd point to the path where I had the private key and the certificate file, and I'd specify it here. That way the user won't see any errors when they're loading the page. Most people click OK and accept anyway, but sometimes you might be targeting somebody who's a little bit more conscious of that stuff or likes to cancel on everything. Okay? And this toolkit's all about getting people to do things for you. It's not about necessarily exploiting a hole in an operating system or a program. You're exploiting the person to click something you want them to, or put in credentials that you want them to. So it fools them into doing that stuff. So, and there's also the ability to run this on an iPad and whatnot. I haven't tested that functionality out. I understand it's mostly functional there, right? Additionally, the one other thing you need to change, if you have an Atheros-based NIC that shows up as an ATH adapter in your backtrack installation, USB devices, when you plug them in and they do pass-through to, or PC MCIA ones in VirtualBox, get pass-through, usually show up as WLAN 0, but if you're running a native install off of the CD or off a hard disk install, you may have an instance where it shows up with a different interface name, and you need to specify that if that's changed, if you're going to use some of the wireless access point. Now, this is at home, but I've actually hooked up a wireless adapter to this, so I'll show you how to start that stuff, and it does work, right? You change your SSID here. So if you've got a corporate SSID that you want somebody to connect to, or if they've got their home or whatever, you can set it here to match the SSID. And this is used as the Airbase NG, which is part of the AirCrack ng project. If any of y'all have used that to set up fake access points, it's the evil twin attack with routing and all the caveats there. And you can couple that with other things. Now, this is pretty much the extent of what you need to set up in here, but I urge you to go through these and set them how they need to be set, especially the metasploit path, which is the first option there. All right? So, go back to the main directory, and there are a few different programs in here except for aside from the setup. This is the main command line executable. This is kind of like the CLI version of metasploit. And basically what you can do is if you go through and you say 2, 3, 4, whatever through the menus, this basically just feeds those commands back into the set program so you can automate stuff like an RC file would be in metasploit. Okay? This basically runs SV and up. So there's really not a lot of benefit to doing that. Okay? This is that setup file, and this starts the web interface. Okay? I'll show you that in a little while, but right now, let's get into the set program itself. Okay? At first, you'll see a number of different options here. These last two, these basically call that set update program. So you can either run it directly from the interface. It also has the option to run this from the web interface. But all of these things, these will just run that program and update the framework. I don't think it's a good idea to necessarily do it from here. The reason why is it doesn't, unlike Metasploit, it doesn't have like a reload function that works as reliably. So I prefer anyway to exit the program and run it from the command line or run SV and up. Okay. And the first two here, these are email spear phishing attack vectors. Okay. This one can do spear phishing and website cloning, do a number of attacks. This is the one that I prefer to use, and I can do emails separate from this. But let's go ahead and look at the email spear phishing ones at first. It's got a number of templates for emails to send out to people. They get added and updated pretty regularly, and they're pretty easy to create in your own. Okay. You can send mass email attack. So you got a list of emails you want to send stuff to. So you have an organization's whole email directory or a group of people from a recent breach that might have happened and got posted on a couple torrent sites recently. You can pull in the email directory from there. You can scrape LinkedIn, any number of places to pull groups of email addresses for an organization. That's what you'd use the mass one for. I don't have an email list set up on here. I don't want to start sending out spam to people. Also, I'm running this off my home system. And what port do most ISPs block outbound? Yeah, I can't really send the traffic out to these other sites from here. But let's look at some of those. Okay, you can send a whole slew of exploits out here. Most of these are pretty reliable exploits out of the Metasploit tree. Okay. You may notice a couple of these. I believe when I showed you the client-side exploits, I went over this number 8 here, if I'm correct. Okay. And these are very nice group exploits. Some of these are overflows, and some of those are just drop an exe and the person will run it. Okay, so we've been over that in the client-side exploitation. I'm not going to dwell on what these specifics go do and whatnot. And you can test these out yourself in your XPVM. You might need to install an older version of a program if you don't already have it. Okay, let's go into one of these. Okay. This IP address that you're setting here is the IP address. If you've gone into your configuration file and disabled figure out my IP address from Google, it makes you set it. I always use this because I'll always operate this thing behind a NAT or a couple layers of NAT. and it doesn't always figure out what your internal IP address to bind to is, or if it tries to set up a listener, you may not set the right port forwarding, so I prefer to set it myself. I used to not have this option. So much easier to use the framework now it does. So the IP address of my VM is 28 here, so. All right. Now you're given a group of different types of shells, interpreter, and whatnot you want to run. One thing you'll notice here is it's mixing something that I wish it had. It doesn't give you the option to run the Java interpreter. I've put in a feature request to have that added, but currently it doesn't do that for any of the exploits, the main stuff here. But you can import something with option 13 if you build something with MSF payload, all right? But let's do something pretty easy. I like number 9. This is the HTTPS one, reverse vector. You know why this is really useful is because it's HTTPS is used in because it's a social engineering exploit, the payload size doesn't really matter here. It's not you're not attacking necessarily a full an exploit if you use like a custom one, you're just sending exe out to people. And that way you don't have to worry about payload size. If you're using one like the PDF ones or the Adobe, the Flash player or something like that, then you may not want to select this one because it is a little bit too large to fit into most overflow spaces. All right. We can do encoding here. These get picked up, unfortunately. That's why number 16 is available. You can take an existing executable and drop code into it. I've tried, these are just like you have in metasploit. Like number 2, for instance, here is one you can pass through MSF encode. You can do all this different cycles, piping, and all that stuff, and still have this picked up by antivirus. So using 16 is nice. There's a template in the system already, but you can replace it using in the configuration file with any exe you want. I like to do stuff that's common on Windows systems that's not a Microsoft program. Java updater programs are nice because those are found on a lot of systems running unless they've been disabled, but they don't really interact with the desktop or anything, so people ignore them. And you know, if with the cursor grants, unless somebody hunts down where the path is running out of, they won't necessarily notice that one, right? So let's go 118,000. Okay, this is the port that it's going to connect back to. All right. And right here, because I picked 16, it's using the default one, but you can put whatever it in, and it's building the payload for you. Okay. Now, you see what I did here? Because I'm using something that's using a file extension protocol handler to exploit. You pick which one you want to send it to. So different applications typically have the handlers for those things enabled. When it gets opened up by that application, it's going to drop the exe and attempt to execute it. So if you put it in a PDF, for instance, it would drop out of there. You can just set it, you know, any of these ones here. Some are more effective than others. It tends to be more common. You'll find Firefox and Office on systems than Incase, which is a forensics tool. I think it's funny you can exploit a forensic tool. It's a protocol handler here. Let's go and try something pretty easy. I'll have the encoder. Let's do number 3. Okay. It can RAR zip. Nice thing about RARs is not everything has a license to unRAR because it is actually the IP of RAR Labs and a couple other people. So if the AV hasn't licensed the decompression component for that, or haven't used, may not be able to pull data out of it. Most do, but it can bypass more things than a zip, because zip is already incorporated into most operating systems, and people can use those tools freely. Okay, I'm just going to keep the file name. All right, and you can send this to multiple email addresses or a single address. I can't send it, obviously, because I'm sending it from home, but this is where we start to add in that other stuff. So I'm going to go back to the main menu, and I'll show you something else. Try this one out. It's great if you're sending out data. Do you have a question, Grex? Okay. Oh, it exited. Yeah, sometimes you'll see that. It doesn't actually go back to the main menu. It exits the program. If you see something like that, go to the site, shoot Relic an email. He's like crazy fanatic about fixing stuff. So just send it stuff. He'll get to it. All right. Now let me show you something we can actually use here. Website attack vectors. These are great. They do things. Has everybody heard of tab nabbing? You familiar with that? Okay, tab nabbing is really cool. It looks at a browser. Let's open up a browser here. And when you load up a URL in that browser, for instance, you go to google.com. I don't have my networking started, so. It goes up here, google.com, and then you open up another tab. What it'll do in that other tab when it sees it loses focus based on a JavaScript event is it will load another page in the tab that lost focus. So you've got another site, say a banking site or a VPN login site or a corporate email site or a Gmail site that you've cloned. The tab nabbing will actually load that page into the other tab as soon as that tab loses focus. Then when somebody cycles back to that tab, it looks like they've been logged out of Gmail. And you can do a credential collection attack against that site. A few browsers have fixed this, but older ones have not. People still using IE7. People still using older versions of Firefox. I believe Safari is still vulnerable to this. The JavaScript events get picked up, okay? So let's load that up. So let me show you that one. Okay. There's a group of templates in here. It's got Gmail, Twitter, and a few others. I don't like using this one because those interfaces tend to change pretty regularly, and if something's screwed up, it might break. So I like to clone a site. Sometimes clones don't work, and you might want to fall back to a template, but cloning is usually a more effective tool for going and pulling down the site. So let's go to 2. All right. Now, this is where you're going to post to. This is a little bit counterintuitive as far as the way the language goes. Actually, this is where the person is going to post from their browser to. Okay, so this would be the IP address that you're running the listener on, not the IP address of the site that you're trying to clone. Okay. Now this is the site that you're going to clone. And it can take HTTPS or HTTP. Cool thing is, if you go and use an HTTPS site, when you load it up and you send them a link to it, it can be HTTP, and it's still got a clone of it. That's really helpful. Colon port. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It uses the HTTP lib and URL lib 2 libraries from Python, which readily interpret that sort of thing. So, anybody at a site? You want to clone? Pick one. Anyone. Do they have a login page on Slashdot? Let's see what the URL is. It's best to pick the actual URL of the login page. If you navigate around, it can break, so let's go to that. Find out what the URL is there. Log in. All right, that works. So what this basically means is if you're running this and you send somebody a link in this, it defeats HTTPS. It does for credential collection. Right. And you can use your own certificate. So if it's a certificate for your site that you're hosting it on, you send the link for, they won't even get a certificate error. Okay. Right. Oh, shit. Yeah, Control C stopped it. My bad. It's also the copy command. Oh, sorry. They got no script that's could break this because obviously if it doesn't run scripts, it can't get the JavaScript events. I'll be seeing the listener. This is newer version of Firefox, so it not be. It's not working with the newer version. If you're using an older browser, though, what would happen is when you switched away to another tab, this URL here would load up inside that tab because it pulled the event. Also, no script breaks tab nabbing. Let me disable that and go back into it. Because even if you enable the entire internet with no script, it still has protections against clickjacking and tab nabbing. So now we got that, and hey, look what else it did after it did the credential harvesting. Notice what the URL is up here? If it's got some credentials, it actually tries to post those credentials to the form on the remote site. So it will log you in and redirect you to that site in that tab. So if you do a successful login and it works properly, it's going to log you in correctly, and it's going to have the credentials. And it will show up as the correct site in the URL here. So all somebody has to do is make one mistake, and you've got their credentials, and they're still logged in. There we go. And it will save an XML report out to the file system. All right. Let's go over the Java method here. This also has the ability of site cloning. If anyone remember when we did the Java applet attack, it had a kind of a limitation on it. where it didn't show anything in the site. It just said web page is loading. And obviously that can be a problem because you're going to not be able to see the site behind it when it loads. Most people, when they open up a page and before they get the Java warning, at least something will load up. Well, set clones the site and we'll display it before you run into that issue. So a common place that Java is used and people run into Java is like a VPN, like a SSL VPN, like a Barracuda VPN, for instance, uses Java for it. If you clone that external site, it's going to load it up, look just like the interface. You could even go so far as to do a couple of different attacks, pull their credentials, as well as run an interpreter, do an interpreter shell off of it. Okay, so let's do a site cloner. Oh yeah, I'll show the wireless stuff has all the capabilities to do all this stuff, and you can do multiple sites with the wireless. It redirects through stuff. It's great. I can't wait until he does router advertisements with IPv6 in here. Did any of y'all read the recent articles on that or postings about that, where you can? Well, you know, there was actually one on the ISC site about it, but you can basically go and advertise out to a site, to a local net. Joe Klein's written extensively on this. It was on the Daily Dave as well, talking about hijacking traffic using IPv6 router advertisements on a local network, which. Oh, that denial of service attack with too many router advertisements? Yeah, that's annoying. I'm going to do this on my local network here, but it does have the ability to do natting. So I have the JDK installed. That allows you to set this stuff. Okay, now we set up another site. Here's a site of, let's do, we'll just do Google. Okay, here's the exploit you want to run. Obviously, just like I said before, this doesn't have the Java interpreter that I showed you all before, but and it does give you a fair number of these. Unfortunately, because these are actually executable drops, they do get picked up by antivirus pretty regularly. But recently, there is a custom shell, an alternative to Meterpreter, that's been added, and currently I don't believe it's picked up by anything. So you can give this a try. It's not as fully functional as Meterpreter, but it is nice. So set up a port to listen on. Okay. If I had Java installed and soaked into the browser, that would work really well. Don't. Hey. All right. It pulls up the job just like you saw before. More information, certificate details, information about the certificate. All right. Close. Cancel. All right. Give it a couple seconds. not loading it up. I was trying to show you is the annoyance portion of it. I'm trying to do the cancel, but remember how I mentioned earlier that it will do the pop back up if you hit cancel? All right, let me close the clear the cache here and do that again. I had it working before I came over here. Yeah. We gotten further than some go, you know? So cancel that. Well, all right. Let's see what's going on before we do a shell. And maybe that I loaded the site up already. Is it working? Yep. Now it's not working at all. Awesome. All right. So, let's try this one more time. I'm going to exit the toolkit. Sometimes it helps. Yeah, that could be why. Let's go Hey, Bing. Great. Usually a good idea to test this first to make sure that all the elements load up properly. Oh, wait. I canceled it. It came back. Canceled it. Came back. You can set an interval as well here in the configuration file on how often it's going to do it. So it'll annoy the person until it runs. And then it redirects them just like before to the main site. So they've got fully functionality out of it. Back into this guy.
And does that interrupt the page loading so they can't proceed with that run?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as they went and started messing around with the page, if you did it like every second or every 2 seconds, it's going to pop up and annoy them every single time and reload the page every single time. It does a redirect.
how could you like define certain parameter happens to me? Can I just like click cancel this browser?
Yeah, you can close the window or the tab and whatever, and hopefully you do it before the Java pops back up. That's true. You could do that as well. If you're running no script, run no script. You can defeat this pretty easily by not, disabling the JavaScript for that site if you've already enabled it. Because Java, just like almost every other embedded object on a web page, is loaded up by a JavaScript handler and it's embedded in the code. So.
Is there a way to like get around that? Like, is there a better way to load it without using JavaScript?
How do you mean? What do you mean? Another one?
You said this JavaScript.
You could embed it in another Java applet potentially. You can't do that directly through the toolkit. I'm actually thinking about doing that as a presentation at the Nova Hackers meeting, not the one on Monday, but the next one. I'm going to talk about wrapping more than one Java applet into a Java applet, so you can have the original applet and then have a second applet that is also loaded when you do that one. So the full VPN functionality is there, as well as whatever your payload would be. Because the cool thing about Java is you can load as many things via the manifest as you want. You can re-sign it with your own signing certificate so it shows up as valid, and it'll work just fine. But anyway, that being said, it really depends on how you do the Java loading. If somebody drops a jar onto your system and you do Java-jar, it would load that way. If you replace a jar on an existing program that's loaded on the system, it could be loaded that way. Sort of like if you had a DLL that was replaced for other exploits.
I just remember like back in the old days, you didn't need JavaScript to load Java.
Well, you could call it directly.
You could use like applet tag.
You might be right. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that most Java applets have to be loaded using an object.
Now, no script is still not off the Java regardless.
You can do with applet. I haven't seen that. Really? Well, there you go. Then you don't need JavaScript to run it. Now, yeah, as you're saying.
But the thing is, yeah, no script handles Java too. So it would lock that. Now, I noticed there was like presentation you made last time, and then this one too. You made that warning about having the Java SDK installed or whatever, so you can create that certain way.
Yeah.
Now that's how I'm back on track by default.
Um,
How do you get that on there?
In the configuration file, you may have come in after I mentioned it.
I saw it.
It tells you how to do it. It says apt-get install and then the type. The reason it doesn't have it installed by default is because of licensing concerns. The OpenJDK is available as well. As I said, it's not as fast and it's not fully stable. It works fine for these attacks, but if you're trying to do other more advanced stuff, it can break other applets that might be embedded in a page. So I prefer to use the Sun one because that's one that's out there on 99.9% of all the systems. You're using the Oracle Sun Java virtual machine.
What's the, is there like, you know, have like on Mac or whatever, ports or whatever, is there a repository that you can just, like an SCN install or something?
Yeah, Java's built into OS X. Oh, but you want the JDK though. Go to the Sun Java. It is? Wow, that's a bad idea.
I'm sorry, I mean, that's not OS X, but I was just talking about backtrack, like, is there a quick command that would do to, you know, like I know on a lot of these tools, backtrack, whenever we update them, we do that SCN up.
Yeah, it uses apt-get.
Are there,
Apt-get.
oh yeah, that's nice, so you can do like,
Yeah.
apt-get,
Upgrade.
so that can, those instructions are just, files and stuff.
Yes, they are. Yep. Anything it needs is a component either set up by the Python setup.py install, which does all the other components as far as I'm I know, and then the JDK is the one outlier from that because of the licensing concerns. And it also tells you how to pull in the Open JDK as well, if you want to use that one. So, anyway, I wanted to show you the new command shell here. It's a lightweight shell. It's written in Python. Unlike the Meterpreter shells and the reverse shells in Metasploit right now, it's not picked up by AV as regularly. And prove this, unless they patched it in the last day. Oh. This is the set shell. It's another shell that's actually now just got added as part of, I believe, 1.2 release of set, added it, and it's gotten a lot more functionality in 1.3.
So are they looking at bringing that over so the Metasploit, is that
It's Python based, so I mean you could do a handler and set up an exe and load that via Metasploit just fine. So instead of using a payload, you can pull in a custom exe to run as a payload in Metasploit and use that. But let's turn this on and do it again. Now we've already seen that AV bypass works fine with the Java interpreter, but the nice thing about this one is it will continue to work after the JVM is closed because it forks out to another process. And you can see the advantage of that. So even if the person closes their browser entirely or Java crashes, which happens for God knows how many reasons, it has the ability to spawn, it migrates off automatically. So you've got another reverse shell. So I can close my browser. Back into backtrack. And my thing is still working here. As that user. Okay. So, okay, I'm a command shell. So this is command.exe. Actually, I prefer the way it does its command prompt looking thing, so you know it's a set one. So if you've got a bunch of things open, you don't know if it's command.exe via reverse shell or command.exe spawned as an interpreter. And if you got more than one open and you exit, one kills it if it's just a standard reverse shell, and one just puts back the interpreter, and you don't remember which one necessarily if you got a whole bunch open you're testing, so it's a little less of an annoyance you're doing it. So, but now you got a full command shell, you can do all your scripting and whatever else you'd like to do. It's not picked up by AV either yet, and Dave's really proud of that right now. So I thanked him for this because Metasploit's exe dropper anyway shells have pretty much been picked up universally, unless it's something like Komodo antivirus. Yeah, don't use Komodo antivirus, by the way. Don't use Komodo anything, but it's crap. It doesn't pick up anything. Honestly, it's this close to being like fake AV. Okay, so let's exit out of that. What's up? What, not to use Komodo? Okay, what are they going to do, sue me? It's my opinion, but I'm right. So, and also, just like with the MSF console, when you have multiple shells, if you have multiple set shells, it shows up here. That handler is still running. So I could go back. I'm going to load this up again. I'll run it this time rather than hit cancel. Redirects me. Maybe didn't pick it up. No. Set is great because you send them an email payload or a link or anything like that. That's what it's all about getting a foothold. If you can use, this is all about getting a foothold. You send out phishing emails, you send out links via whatever.
I guess I was thinking something like you would use Metasploit as a shell, like an interpreter shell, and then you can run set
You could do it that way, but I prefer to do it the other way around. Use this to get into the environment, and then use Meterpreter and all the other features to do post exploitation.
I'm thinking the difference in traceability standpoint, like if you have an interpreter first and run set from there, when they trace it back, then it's come back from their own machine. Versus
Yeah, you can do a port forward type of attack, pull the stuff in. Cool thing is, you can actually use the SOX 4 proxy built into Metasploit to pull the clone in. Then you can send a link from the outside with the cloned website from their internal intranet site, for instance. Send an email with that to them. They open that up, it looks like their intranet site, which might have Java or have something else in it, and they're going to click OK to load it. It's going to redirect them back to that intranet site when it loads up. So they're on their internet, and you've also gotten a shell that way. So you can use something that wouldn't be like a Google or wouldn't be an external site as an attack vector. Or you can use port forward that way too.
Is there any defensive on this from a network point of view? Breath filtering or anything like that, signature wise?
That being, it can work over HTTPS, so that becomes pretty difficult if somebody uses that correctly. If you're able to man the middle of HTTPS and you're able to watch this stuff and you do get signatures for it, you could do so. Unfortunately, if anybody on an organizational standpoint here realizes HTTPS is something that's very difficult to cope with, and it's so fundamental to everybody's business practices. I mean, I've tested out equipment with this sort of thing, and none of it really is all that great for man the middle and that stuff. And even if it is, you're still relying on your IDS or your blacklist or your antivirus and whatnot that's inline to block that stuff and hopefully catch it. And as I said, with this, it's with the SSL, with the Java one, because you can reassign it to whatever, it looks just like a normal applet. It never gets picked up. Yeah. And in order to do it, they'd have to open up a Java, to do heuristics on it, they'd have to open up the Java and actually run it through a heuristic engine. And all of you realize how slow Java can be to load the bytecode and run all the other stuff, it's that. And then you have to license the JVM if you want to do certain functions, and if you want to distribute it. Legalism is really what causes a lot of these things to get missed because they don't have the rights to do this kind of activities. All right, let's go back. I want to show you a couple more things in here before we wrap up. The wireless stuff, for instance, it's pretty nice. Yeah, and if you use a reverse HTTPS, then your traffic goes back over that, which is great. Okay, so let's get out of that. To exit the thing, as I said, it can get a little unstable if you do a bunch of attacks here and you're still in the shell. I also want to show you the web interface. So let's go back. So there are a couple other things in here. The mass mailing attack, which can just send out junk mail or whatever. You can send SMS messages. I don't have anything hooked up to send those with right now. You can also use SMS gateways, like if you got vText or whatever. But I'd use an emailer for that instead of an SMS engine. The Teensy, does anybody know here have a Teensy? Oh, Teensies are cool. They're little microcontrollers with USB interface. They can be programmed to look like whatever interaction device you want them to be. So you can drop one in and tell them, hey, I'm a keyboard, not a thumb drive. And then if you do that, you can watch all the other human interface device things like people doing keystrokes, will be sent to you to that device as well. Or you can have it input keystrokes. So Windows key, up, run, cmd.exe, then put in all this other stuff and run it manually all from the command shell. It's really, really cool. Adrian Crenshaw came up with them. Well, I believe he did them either last year or the year before last at first. I really encourage you to go look at them. Buy one. They're great. You can get them in cool form factors, right? So now let's go into wireless stuff. It's a default to WLAN 0. Basically what this is running now is a rogue access point. So if somebody connects out to it, it's going to route the traffic out through it, and you can man the middle and either cap all of that stuff. Okay. You can't really see a lot of it from here, so you won't. But if somebody connected up this, I'm not at home, so I can't connect in with another access point. You should be able to see when clients connect to it. It will give you more options. Right? If you've got compatible injectable
I was curious, where do you set the SSID?
in the config file, yeah, it's got a place down there. I set it to Corp Wireless.
Do you like make it like WPA
It's open by default. The reason being is you may not, if you don't know their WPA key, then if they connect to it, it will fail. I mean, and they'll need to know the passphrase, so just make an open one. They'll connect to that. I mean, if you're able to get it, there are ways to do it with Airbase and G and whatnot, but not configurable via set at the moment. Yes. Evil twin attack. Remember to stop it afterwards, because if you want to use it again later, or if it's still running, if you unplug a USB device, if you're running it through pass-through it will crash some kernels, especially if the drivers are a little buggy.
So if I'm running backtrack, and I'm, I start a set, do I have to have I think you mentioned you need a USB dongle or something to make this work?
Yes.
Just link the network to that USB dongle.
Yeah, I'm using Workstation here, but I believe the settings are about the same. Therospace, I've got a couple of SRs, Ubiquiti SR71 USBs, very, very sensitive, dual band, so they do both 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz out of a USB dongle. They have external antenna hookups. They're really nice. One of the old favorites is the Alphas. I've got some of those as well. They're not as sensitive, but they're cheap. They're cheap, and they've got newer versions of them based on RA-Link chipsets that are a little better than the original Realtek-based Alphas were. But those tend to be, I believe those are both 2.4 gigahertz only. So if you've got somebody you want to hit on, somebody's running a network for whatever reason, I don't know. You are? Yeah, that's good. Yeah, there are a lot of them. And the problem, I pay attention to what chipset is in them, because different revisions of the cards, if you buy like a Linksys or a D-Link or whatever, they'll sometimes switch the entire manufacturer that the card is in. You go to openwrt.org, they've got a bunch of stuff. Go to Aircrack's website, check to see on adapters that they suggest. Some of them are old, and they don't sell them anymore. Some of them are still available.
Is there like, it seemed like there's no wireless attached to this. Is there like one master thing, like USB dongle?
The alpha tends to be the one that people go to. The alpha. Yeah, I've got one with me, I believe. I can show y'all if you want after we're finished here. Okay. Let me show you the web interface real quick, and then we'll wrap up. Okay. It automatically launches here. You can set the port it's listening on in the configuration file. Localhost. No link there. So it gives you a web interface. It's got links to the documentation, the different websites, the IRC channels, all that sort of thing. All the different attack vectors are available here, including updating and whatnot. So you can go through the interface and do almost all the operations that you would from the command line in here. Tab nabbing, Java applet, set up the site to clone, other information. Now, you may not see some of the options that you set in the configuration file, may not work necessarily in here. I believe it requires you to use the Google external IP discovery for some of these. It doesn't have an option to input it directly yet, but if you're using close to the default configuration file, the web interface should work for you. But I really do urge you to use the command line first, figure out how that works, and then fall back. If you create a shell with the web interface, it does still go to the command line from where you launched it. So you don't interact with it here. You basically just set up the attacks from here at the moment. So if I was to get a shell on another system, it would still come in here, and there's errors coming up, but missing files and whatnot. It's a new interface, but you can give it a try. But just like the GUI version of metasploit, it's not the ideal solution necessarily, but it does give you most of the functionality. I'm not going to go through using these because it doesn't tend to suit my fancy very well, but if anybody's got a question about it, let me know. Any other questions? Comments, suggestions, otherwise? Okay. I think that's it. And do you want to add anything, Georgia? Okay. Me? Somewhat often. I actually like to do a little more custom stuff, and I use Metasploit a lot more. But there are occasions when I want to do a website clone. It's better at that, and I'll use that. Also, the new set command shell's useful because of the AV bypassing features that it's got right now. But also, the teensy stuff is actually what I use to program one of those, because it's got the best interface and the best tool set for that at the moment.
This is not entirely an independent framework, right? It works
Yes. You can launch the set command shell and do non-metasploit attacks without metasploit, but don't think it's going to work very well without it. It checks for some of the paths, and you actually have to disable stuff in order to get to load proper, at least the last time I tried to do so on its own. In order to exit the web interface, Control-C.